Look at old Mac sitting out there. He's wanting to go for a ride. Somebody go out there and turn that motor off before he hurts himself.
Yeehaw! That's how we do it in the country. Well, today I think we will discuss schools today versus how they used to be versus how they are now. I don't know if my microphone's in place. I can't tell. Anyhow. In 1946, September, as I had mentioned before, I entered the first grade of school in a little school called Pinckney City, named after a Confederate general, General Pinckney. It was a 5-room school. My own father attended the same school. My first grade teacher, her name was Miss DeWire. Miss DeWire taught my daddy, and she hadn't changed any. My daddy and I, we compared notes. And of course, we started off with the ABCs and, you know, and that kind of stuff, like in all schools. But the real lesson was not necessarily about what was being taught in school, but about the structure of our character. If we were undisciplined at home and you brought your attitude to school, believe me, there was a price to pay for that. In the old days, if you got caught passing a note or doing something that was forbidden, your teacher would take your hand and bend your fingers backwards, and she would take the ruler and she'd swat you a few times across the hand. We're not talking about now like a little little tap or something like that. She made your eyes water, and she did it with great pride. And we learned the meaning of fear. Now, there are certain things you didn't do around your daddy. You knew not to get involved in that, because his justice was swift. I mean, he also tended to enjoy what he did too. As you got kind of acclimated to the rules, you chose to abide them or pay the consequences. Now, you can't keep a boy from the 1st grade through the 5th grade unless he was going to run afoul of the rules. It always happens. I know, like the house of the rising sun, I was one. And justice came quick. If you was out on the playfield and you ducked by, we used to have outdoor toilets at our school. We didn't have any indoor plumbing. You got caught behind the bathroom smoking. There was a punishment for that. And it was swift. It wasn't a matter of a couple of swats across your hand. You had to go see the principal, and the principal, he loved it when you walked through the door, because he enjoyed what he did. He knew you would sit there. You were sent to the principal to receive discipline. And there was discipline immediate. He would reach into his desk and get a paddle that had 3 to 6 holes drilled into it. And you knew the routine. You had to bend over the desk and take your arms, your hands, and reach down and hold your ankles. And you probably would receive 5 swats with the paddle. Now the holes in the paddle were designed to achieve maximum pain. See, when you got a flat board, it makes a lot of sound, but there's a bit of an air cushion. If you drill the holes in the paddle, the air goes, as the paddle approaches your butt, the air goes through the hole, and all the power and the force behind that swing will be applied to your butt. Oh, it wasn't good. But anyhow, you always promise yourself you'd do better. Well, school was not all about pain. We had games we played. I wonder how many young men out there today knows what a marble is. We had marble games. We'd draw a circle, and you would have rules. You know, you had to take your marble and try to knock other marbles out of the circle. And boy, I mean, you could be so good. Get all the marbles. You got to keep the marbles now. You know, you would carry probably 5 of your best marbles there, and you had what you call shooting marbles, the one that you'd use to do the shooting, and all the marbles had names. Chinkapin, one-eyed, you know, all them names. And when you played the game at school, kept the marbles, and then when you would go over to another crowd of boys, they'd be playing a game called Mumley Peg, Rudapeg. And what they would do, they would put a peg into the ground, and they would play so many rounds, and every time a round was played, they would tap the root deeper into the ground. time the peg was sunk down into the ground, and you had to take your teeth and get down there and chew that peg out of the ground. You spit a lot of dirt. Man, that was a good game. I ate a lot of dirt in my days, but we played good. We played it with a pocket knife. You had to go off the tip of your fingers. You had to flip the knife off the back of your hand. See, when you laid the knife on the back of your hand with the blade open, you'd flip it up in the air, and the blade had to stick into the ground. And you did this, you flip it off of your finger, it had to stick into the ground. If you flopped it over on the side or whatever, you lose your turn. And the next guy would see how far he could advance on doing the maneuvers you had to do with a pocket knife. Now you got to keep in mind, all of us carried knives, pocket knives, and we used a pocket knife for everything. We would cut a piece of glass out of our foot. We run barefooted, and we'd wade across creeks and rivers, and we'd get glass in our feet, and we'd take that knife and cut that glass out of our foot. And or you'd step on a thorn and run a 1/4 inch of thorn into the heel of your foot, and you'd sit there and carve away until you got that thorn out of your foot. We had a thing called a stone bruise, when you jump off high walls and do all kinds of running and jumping and stuff that boys will do. The pad on your foot right behind your toes would get a pus pocket in it called a stone bruise. If you didn't have the guts to do it, your buddy would take his pocket knife and he'd split right behind your toes and get all the pus out of that stone bruise. And oh hell yeah, it did hurt, but you ain't gonna let your buddy know that. Usually we never had any form of antiseptic or nothing like that. We just hope we didn't get lockjaw or blood poisoning or any kind of inflammation. At this time of the year, in August, we had what they call dog days. Dog days, you got cut or hurt or anything, bad cut, stepped on a nail, you could get lockjaw. Fortunately, by the 50s or somewhere around there, they got the tetanus shot, and you was pretty well protected. And when we got to the doctor, they had asked you, have you had a tetanus shot? And I'm getting a lot of air in my helmet today. I don't know where it's coming from. I may have my vent open, I don't know. Anyhow, we played marbles at school and root-a-peg and all those games, but I'm going to tell you, never once when I was going to school did I ever hear of a kid pulling a knife on another kid. That didn't happen at school. Not at our schools it didn't happen, because we had what they call truant officers, and if you messed up, there was a high probability they would turn you over to a truant officer, and he would take you to juvenile school. Your ass was grass then, and they was a 100 horsepower lawnmower coming after you. So, rules and things, you know, you hear the old saying, rules are meant to be broken, but it all depends on where you're at. You just didn't break them in Alabama. Recycle Hooligan can tell you, he's a lot younger man than I am, but he probably remembered about discipline. When you got older, you got out of elementary school, you got into junior high school, you didn't go see the principal. You went to see the coach. And the coach was a kind of guy that loved pain. At least I perceived him being that way, because every time I met him, he didn't hesitate to put the pain on me. My son told me one time, this is not changing the subject, I'm just sort of digressed over to something else. My son Donald told me one time when he was at Great Lakes, Illinois at the Naval Training Center, he learned a term in the Navy called MASH, M-A-S-H, like that great old movie, MASH. But in the Navy, when you was doing training, it was make a sailor hurt. Make a sailor hurt. They had ways of discipline. Well, that's what the coach knew about MASH. Make a student hurt. And they could do a good job of it. But I'm going to tell you, by the time you got through high school, you'd already received quite a few beatings. And now you're ready for the Army, because when I came up, everybody's responsibility was to God and to the country. And you was disciplined. I've seen boys that come out of New York and various places where they didn't have corporate punishment, and you know, they had to go stand in the corner, they had to you know, write an essay, write some kind of report, whatever. But you never heard of stories about them getting their butt whooped in school. Now here's the deal, even in high school, when you was to receive punishment from the coach, you did not have to have your attorney present. Your mother and daddy did not have to be standing there to witness the whole affair. You didn't have to have a judicial process that was 9 months long, and you had somebody said, well, he's been a good boy, I think we'll let him off this time. No. You don't get off. You get your behindy whooped. And that's the way it was. So when you got in the Army, they couldn't hurt you. The drill instructor could scream in your face, and you knew not to do anything to invoke him, same as you didn't invoke the coach. There was just things that you knew what to do and what not to do because of the discipline that you received during all those 12 years of schooling. I'm not saying it made me a better man, but I respected authority, whether the authority of my mother and father, yes ma'am and no ma'am. My sisters and brothers will tell you everything ended with yes sir and no sir. Yes ma'am, no ma'am. Thank you ma'am. May I please? There was no, my daddy's, the worst nightmare you could ever have as a child in my family was to tell your daddy nah, nah. He didn't like the word nah. Nah was a southern way of saying no. And the kids, the modern day kids, say nope. My daddy would never allow the word nope. You would have, here's what would have happened. I think there's four letters in note. You would have got the NO out, but the PE will never pass your lips because your daddy's backhand would have already splattered them lips. That was the way it was. I too will say again, I don't know if that made me a better man, but I stayed within my boundaries throughout my whole life. When I got into the company that I retired from, I navigated my way through the company like the great white, eating up white people at the beach. You know, it was good eating, good picking. The great white at Panama during spring break. Yeah, I have often told friends of mine there was a certain amount of pleasure in being raised here in the South. The pleasure was knowing that you were prepared for anything. And I mean anything. You also, it took the fear factor out of me. Oh, sure, when you was in the first grade, there was things that made you a little scared. But mostly, you overcome that by the time you got to the 5th grade. And you didn't replace fear with cockiness. Cockiness was not allowed in our day. And I'm going to tell you another thing. When you was a kid and you walked into a room, there's your mama and your daddy and a bunch of adults sitting around the table talking. You didn't slide up to the table and start doing the yeah and the nah and, you know, asking 1,000 questions and getting in the way. That old, it's better to be seen and not heard, that was the rule that we went by. Your parents did not tolerate you dominating the conversation. They would give you a look, and if you wasn't demented or retarded, and nothing against retarded people, but if you was a little bit smart at all, you would know that look means get out of the room. You never question it. That's the way it was. Anyhow, I thank you very much. This is a little ride this morning. I got my little girl back there. She's no longer hanging on for dear life. She truly loves it. I think Dean up in Virginia, Motorbomb, Virginia, he watched a video of her first ride. It said 1 year ago, but it was more than 2 years ago. I think I reposted that from, but anyhow, it was a couple of years ago. And she crawled on the back of that thing, and she said it made her a little nervous, but since then we've put on thousands of miles. She learned to love that other machine. She rode with me after I broke my leg, and anyhow, she likes this motorcycle a whole lot better. It's more comfortable, got air ride suspension, air conditioned. As you know, we got a microwave and a refrigerator on here, because you guys seen me when we got back home the other day. She reached in the refrigerator and got me a cold beer and poured it into a frozen mug. So you know that wasn't AI. That was absolutely for real. So here we are coming into Coleman. Call me. That's Alexander Zanora. He can cover everything. In fact, if this video offends you in any way about children being beaten, call Alexander Zanara. He'll take your case. I was beaten 70 years ago. I was beaten by other adults 70 years ago. And I didn't dare tell my daddy that coach whooped my butt. Because my daddy, his obligation was to whoop me again. Because he paid money. In our days, a recycle hooligan here in Fort Payne, Alabama, he can tell you his mama's parents had to buy her books here in Alabama. There was not a free public education system. Books had to be bought. This is after you got up in junior high. Your elementary books were furnished to you. You know, learn the ABCs, reading, writing, arithmetic. But as you got up in junior high, it cost, I think, about $30 a year to rent the books, and the books had to be turned in. And if you eat the pages or gnawed on the back of the book, or if you took your pencil and drawed horns on presidents and stuff like that, your daddy had to pay for that book. And your daddy only paid for it once, and he would take every penny of it out of your butt. Anyhow, you appreciated your education. Everybody had to work so hard to get the education for you, and you didn't pass any opportunity to utilize that vacation. That education, not vacation. I'm thinking about taking a vacation. Well, let's see where we're going to eat today. Now, my little girl back here, she wanted to do Chinese. But we did Chinese last week. And I'm thinking, since I'm older and I've outruled her, I told her, I looked her right in the eyes and I said, girl, we're going to go get some American food. I like American food. Got your corn and roast beef, got your taters, got your jalapeno peppers, it got you everything in there. It's called the Golden Corral. And the more I talk about it, the hungrier I'm getting. I can see the sign coming up, so it won't be long. We'll be sliding up on the Golden Corral. So, I'll have to stop the video here soon, but as you can see, the Golden Corral is pretty well packed, as it always is. And that's the way we live the economy. When you see where you have to struggle to get a parking place, don't let me hear you whine about the economy. Sure, it costs more to go to the restaurant, but has that slowed people down? No. It just made them, oh, I see, I'm going to go up there and come through here. Oh, watch this. Man, I know how to work these things. Look at this. Where's that hole? Oh, there it is. I missed the hole. I won't give up. I won't give up. I'll go right up through here. Watch this. Whee! Whee! As Ray Gregory says, whee! I'm going to go right down through here. I mean, I'm lazy. I'm 84 years old. Lazy. Yeah, buddy. Look at this right here. We're going to whoop right in here like we had good sense. Look at this. Well, the cooler is working. It's 97 degrees. And with that, we're going to say, have a good day.